Hello all, the Irrational Skeptic here, and today I'm going to be doing a video on the dichotomy of the judging versus the perceiving functions. And this was something brought about by Myers-Briggs. It was formally made to distinguish the attitudes between what we would call judging types and perceiving types. And in the MBTI, a type is known to be a judger if one of their two top extroverted functions is a judging function. A type is known to be a perceiver if one of their two top extroverted functions is a perceiving function. And why the MBTI does it this way, I really don't know, because it seems a little weird why someone is considered a perceiver or a judger only based on extroversion. I think it kind of assumes that the introverted functions can't have an attitude that can be seen. And even though it's not noticed, I don't think it's not seen. It's still there. So I've looked into socionics and have found that they actually classify a person as a perceiver or judger solely based on whether a person's dominant function, no matter if it is introverted or extroverted, is a perceiving or judging function. So to make things a little easier, I will list all the perceiving functions and then I will list all the judging functions. And so the perceiving functions are extroverted intuition, introverted sensing, and extroverted sensing. So the intuition and sensing functions are perceiving functions, and then the judging functions will be extroverted thinking, extroverted feeling, and introverted feeling. That is the thinking and feeling functions. And so what makes a function a perceiving function? A perceiving function is one which sifts for information in the environment, uh, that is either within or without, and it's without any preference for what it is scanning for. It is actually just collecting information as is and rendering no judgment, meaning what will be done with this information, it really does not care. It will pinpoint particular peculiarities in the information, but only in relation to its user. Every person is different, and so we are all concerned personally with different things. This only deals with the information flow, and there is no discriminatory process going on. And I guess an example would be the introverted sensor. This type collects sensations from the environment. And when I say the environment, since they are introverted, this is in relation to their own reaction to the environment. So when someone collects information, when an introverted sensor picks up information, their own reaction to that information is what they are perceiving. They are seeing how they are reacting to it. And so it builds up a storehouse of these sensations and their relative occurrences in time. When the user wills, they can simulate the experience, which brings back memories. This is why introverted sensors would tend to have highly specific memory. The emphasis here is that nothing is done with the information as to render one good or bad. Those are judging. Um, those are judging ways. That's how people judge. Another example, just to clarify, I can say the extroverted intuitive. This is an outward facing function that builds up patterns out of external objects. Underlying the substrate of every object, they know there is a similar pattern making material. So just think of when physicists say atoms make up matter. This is kind of what they're doing. So they will tend to turn one thing into another through the art of transmutation. If you remember the alchemists of the past, many of them would be perceivers and more than likely intuitives. There could be sensors in there as well, because alchemy tends to be an art. So if you have a more artistically inclined ISFP, they could also be into this process. This view of life renders them a multifaceted approach to their every encountering. When this intuition is turned upon the self, they imagine that they can also transmute themselves. As for turning iron into gold, it is the same intuitive process that realizes there must be similar makeups of all material. So by given the right pressures and actions to a substance, they should be able to transform metal into gold. Of course, we've never seen that happen. And moving on, what makes a function a judging function? Simply, this comes through the act of preferential treatment of information. Since we can arrange information into structures, there can be more appealing structures and less appealing ones, so to speak. So the judger looks out at the world, and based on his or her own inclination and preferences, they will like one form more than another. This is the basic form regardless of whether one is a feeler or a thinking type. They are both judging types. The word judgmental in relation to introverted feelers does not really apply more to them. It is just that this is a cultural influence of when we say someone is a judgmental person. We are more, this is in relation to language and how we use it, language itself is another whole ball game of its own. It transforms and tends to have its own special structure through it. It's in a way it is alive. So it moves and transforms, and today this means that, and tomorrow it means something else. So examples of a judging person or someone with the judging type would be the extroverted feeler. The extroverted feeler is a judger because based on their own character, they will preference one sort of feeling in the environment. And it's not necessarily that these types must want good feels in the environment, so they mustn't be happy-go-lucky people necessarily. In relation to the user, it is only of importance for them to be able to negatively or positively influence the environment. And an extroverted feeler, as a school teacher, for example, scolds a student when they do bad. The reason for scolding is to impute negative feeling into the student, so they know that they have done bad, since they know people have a preference for good feelings, and when you positively reinforce someone, they continue to do a behavior. When you negatively reinforce them, they tend to stop that behavior. So an extroverted feeler, as a school teacher, wants the child to feel negative emotion and so increase pressure from the outside to cause these emotions. Emotions is only relevant because this is the mechanism through which the feeling function has learned to be positively or negatively impacted, or you are able to positively or negatively impact individuals or groups of people. So you may even see when people are giving speeches, maybe a politician, they have a crowd, and they're saying a bunch of stuff. You know what politicians say, all nonsense. But yeah, they say a bunch of things. They read the environment. If they're able to create good feels, everyone will, in unison, get those feels, and if they are able to, for some reason, sometimes they want to cause bad emotions. Let's say they want to talk about their opponent. If they want to talk about their opponent, they will say things that will depress their mood, and so that when they see an opponent, they will have automatically negative feelings for them. And this should, in theory, reflect in their voting behavior in the polls. If they even just see the person's name, they'll probably get mad. Hey, I hate this person. And I mean, they might rightly hate the person. Maybe the person is a bad person. But we see how manipulative this can become if, let's say, they are lying about another person. So you do have to check checks. You have to have checks and balances in this kind of transformation of your emotions. Because if it's wrong, then you are wrongly feeling about a person. And another example is the introverted thinker. In the MBTI, the INTP is known as a perceiver because they have extroverted intuition, that's NE, as an auxiliary function. It is believed that because they rather withhold judgment until collecting all the data, that this makes them a perceiver. So because of their weight behavior. On the contrary, the fact that they render judgment is what makes them a judging type. Yes, they can be quite amiable and maybe even more so than the INTJ, as many have known to be cold. But this is arguable. This could be for different reasons. They may not have as cold as an approach towards people, but they do have a cold approach towards facts and towards logical structures. They just prefer these type of structures. This allows them to parse the tree and look for the authenticity of statements being made or pictures being drawn for them. In comparison to the INTJ, whom should actually be a perceiver, even though it seems as if they are more strict outwardly, they are first and foremost perceivers. So even their apparent judgments are in service of a more abstract pattern to which they are forming against. And yeah, that's just a gist of a difference between the INTJ and INTP, whom in the socionics categorization, the INTJ would be an INTP, and the INTP would be an INTJ. So if you ever are on socionics and you see those two functions and you're wondering why they have the INTJ leading with introverted intuition rather than introverted thinking, this is the reason. And so yeah, I think I'll end this video here. Let me know what you think of the differences between judgers and perceivers, if you think socionics has a better grasp of how we should think about these types or think about these dichotomies. And let me know if you found this helpful down in the comments. I will be taking video requests too. So if you'd like a certain kind of video done on a topic, you can leave your recommendation in the comments. I'll decide if it's a topic I'm interested in covering. And yeah, share, subscribe to my channel. And that's all for now. The Irrational Skeptic signing off.